The House will please come to order. Messages from the Senate.
Message number 7. Mr. Speaker, the Senate has voted by a 2/3 vote of the membership to override the governor's vetoes to Senate Enrolled Act number 28, being original Senate File 2. Ayes 27, noes 4. Message 8. Mr. Speaker, the Senate has voted by a 2/3 vote of the membership to override the governor's veto on Senate Enrolled Act number 22, being original Senate File 61. By the vote indicated, ayes 28, noes 3. The Senate respectfully asks the House to override the governor's veto on Senate Enrolled Act number 22, being original Senate File number 61. Message number 320. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 90, State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool, ayes 21, noes 10. Message 321. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 118, Bighorn and Domestic Sheep Relocation Federal Action. The Senate failed to concur on House amendments to the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Noes 31. Message 322. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 118. Senate conferees are Senator Hicks, Chairman, Senator Ide, Senator Steinmetz. Message 323. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 83, Reviser's Bill, ayes 30, noes 1. Message 324. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 54, Homeowners Tax Exemption. The Senate failed to concur on House amendments to the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 0, noes 31. Message 325. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 54. Senate conferees are Senator Beitman, Chairman, Senator Barlow, Senator Landon. Message 326. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 13. The Senate conferees are Senator Steinmetz, Chair, Senator Ide, Senator Cole. Message 327. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 67, Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions. The Senate adopted the Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 22, noes 8, conflict 1. Message 328. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 132, American Rescue Plan Act Appropriations Amendments 4. The Senate failed to concur on the House amendments to the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, ayes 0, noes 31. Message 329. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 132. The Senate conferees are Senator Cole, Chairman, Senator Dockstader, Senator Kinski. Message 330. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 166. The Senate conferees are Senator Barlow, Chairman, Senator Boner, Senator Rothfuss. Message 331. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 4. The Senate conferees are Senator Beitman, Chairman, Senator Barlow, Senator Pappas. Message 332. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 92. The Senate conferees are Senator Landon, Chairman, Senator Boner, Senator Rothfuss. Message 334. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 45. The Senate conferees are Senator Barlow, Chairman, Senator Beitman, Senator Cooper. Message 336. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 41, Banking Division, Classification and Salary Exemptions. Ayes 24, noes 7. Message 337. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 42, Low Carbon Reliable Energy Standards Amendments. The Senate adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 18, noes 12, conflict 1.
Well, I'm going to take this moment to introduce my wife that's in the west balcony. Sue Summers. I love her very much, and I thank her for letting me do this job. So thank you. Love you, honey. We'll just stand at ease at the gavel for a minute. All right, the House will please come back to order. If I could find my chair of appropriations. Is there a chair? Chairman Nicholas? So we're at that order of business of consideration of joint conference committee reports. The next report for our consideration is Joint Conference Committee number 1 on House Bill 138. Chairman Nicholas. House Bill 138. That was the one at the top of my pile.
Mr. Speaker,
Chairman Nicholas.
I would move House Bill 138, the Joint Conference Committee report, and ask for your aye vote. So we went down to the House side, the good folks down the hall, and they agreed with our position. So favorable vote. Just thank you.
All right, we're
Mr.
Representative
Speaker.
Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question. When we voted on this before it left this House, it wasn't mentioned that I think this has to be a 2/3 vote. Is that correct?
We'll check on that, Representative Bear. Chairman Nicholas.
So just a reminder of what this bill is, ladies and gentlemen. You recall that we put roughly 2.6 million into the trust fund for the state, for the Wyoming, the fair in Douglas. And then we put 2.6 million into the Wyoming Public Television. Originally, they opposed that. They came back to our body with a non-concurrence where they struck out the money for the public television. And so all this does is they have ceded back to the House position, which
Okay,
is,
and Representative Bear, this is not a 2/3 majority vote. So we are voting on Joint Conference Committee number 1 on House Bill 138. A majority of elected members is required to adopt the report. The Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand.
Excused.
Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clouston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwaniter Dan, Zwaniter Dave, Speaker Summers. Allemand, excused to no. Further changes? Knapp, aye to no. Further changes? Andrew, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 37 aye, 22 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 138. Every one of these we peg out like that as one more opportunity to get out of here. So Chief, I know Chairman Nicholas had a couple others, but I don't know which ones they are. Chairman Nicholas, what other bills are you working on there? Okay, I think we'll do, so the next report for our consideration is Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 on House Bill, on Senate File 67. On Senate File 67, Chairman Nicholas.
So, Mr. Speaker, I would move on a.
Move Joint Conference Committee Report Number
Yeah,
1 on Senate File
I would move
67.
Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to Senate File 67. So, ladies and gentlemen, our good folks down the hall failed to concur with our actions. This has to do with the public employees' retirement plan contributions, and you may recall that we put in roughly about $3.4 million one time to help the cost to the employees who are working for the state of Wyoming to help cover the expense of increasing the contribution to the retirement plan. And so our good folks down the hall weren't too excited about that $3.4 million. And so they failed to pass. And so what I'm requesting, Mr. Speaker, is that we put another committee together and go back down the hall, I think.
All right, anybody want to ask any questions on this bill? Representative Walters, do you want to clarify anything, or? Have you guys worked this in a conference committee? So this bill is solved. So this has been moved. Do you want to adopt? Do you want to, Representative
No,
Walters?
I would withdraw my motion.
Okay, very good. We don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it. I've got this, but I don't have the signed copy. I don't have. Well, we'll just stand at ease for a minute until we get more paper. Representative Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a question. I thought that we had to vote on that joint conference committee report up or down, don't
He
we?
pulled his motion. Because wrong paperwork.
Okay.
So I'm going to go now, hopefully, to the next conference committee report for our consideration is Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 45. Chairman Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to House Bill 45. Ask for your favorable consideration and an aye vote. Essentially, members, as you remember, when this cap bill left our body, it was at 5%. It went down the hall. They amended that to 3%. They also took out the, just so we're clear, if you pull up the report, which is under the amendments on the bill, they took out some of the language regarding additional structures. There was some testimony in the Senate committee that really wasn't doable. We all thought that. We had a good representative bring a good motion on third reading, and the department said that's going to be really hard to administer, and they gave a bunch of reasons why. The Senate agreed. And so what this report does is adopts the Senate amendments. There was also some clarifying, or I guess typographical errors in it. They fixed those, and we met in the middle on the percent. Ultimate compromise, they chose 3, we chose 5, we met in the middle at 4, and that's really the story of the conference committee report. And so unless there's any questions, I would ask for your aye vote.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I don't necessarily want to hurt the passage of the bill, but my worry is that 4% might still be under the average rate of inflation over a long period of time. And so if we make the cap under the average rate of inflation, I think the worry is that we're going to put our localities that rely on those property tax revenues essentially underwater over the course of a longer period of time, where their revenue won't even match inflation, but their expenses will still have to match inflation over that time. So some more talk on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing would be really helpful for me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the bringer of the report. If he could just address the current status of mobile homes. Are they still included? And there were exclusions before for new homes, new purchases of homes, and those that did a major addition. If you could just address those as well. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to talk a little bit to that average rate of inflation and just say this, that if any of you have looked at the numbers, for example, for median household income in the state for the last, say, 10 years. Now, I know it's changed a little bit between 22 and 23, but if you look at those numbers between, the numbers I think I had were from 13 to 22, you'll see that those numbers are relatively flat. In fact, if you look at them between 18 and 22, you'll see they're minus 2%. So I just want to say that I think the 4%, although I would always rather it be lower, but that being said, I would say I think it's good. Let's keep it in a reasonable range, and let's take good care of our people. Thank you.
Representative Henderson for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could you please clarify when it's going to become effective and give us a little information on that page 4, line 2223, where it talks about beginning in tax year? Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Second time before the bringer of the motion. Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the good representative from Campbell County, none of the substantive language of the bill changed, so it still includes mobile homes, et cetera. That none of that changed. Really, the only change on the Senate end was taking out our third reading amendment regarding sheds and additional outbuildings. That was the only substantive change on the other end. To the good representative from this county, the language that's talking about in the report, that refers to our third reading amendment that we took out. So that does not change the effective date. Effective date for buildings is January 1, 2024. And then starting next year in 2025, it will include the land, the associated land with that residential structure as well.
All right. Okay, Chief, I'll do that one next. We'll work on. We are voting on Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 45. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman, excused. Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 60 aye, 1 no, 1 excused.
All right. So the next conference committee report for our consideration is Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 67, which is the one we just had, but we had the wrong team up for, we had people that weren't on the conference committee. So Chairman Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 67 and ask for your favorable consideration. And this is, again, friends, this is the big plan for the retirement system. So this is the contributions. These contributions will be increased in this bill. And the House had put in an amendment that would add $3.4 million to pay the executive branch agencies portion, the employee portion of that increase for the next 2 years. We went and met with our friends in the Senate, and they agreed that the bill is a good bill, but it was a better bill without that funding in it. So what we have done in this conference committee is we removed the $3.4 million funding. So the bill is just as it was introduced at the beginning of session. So the funding was all removed. And the increases stay as they were previously stated. So with that, I'd take any questions and ask for an aye vote on Senate File 67, Conference Committee number 1.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So without that little push in at the start that we'd be doing from the state that we had in the House position, how much more is it going to end up costing employees 10, 20, 30 years from now with their contributions? Or is there a risk of it getting out of actuarially good range? I apologize for not being able to use my words properly. Further down the road where we're going to have to up their rate again or put in money in the future.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a little clarification on that, because it was mentioned that the original bill didn't have, it takes everything back to the original bill, but the original bill did have that $3.4 million appropriation in it, I believe. So, but perhaps I'm wrong. I'd like a little more clarification.
Anybody else for the first time? Second time before the bringer of the motion. Representative Walters, do you want another bite at the apple?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the question about where will this fund be 20 years, 30 years from now? So this is the first step, and then we also passed another piece of legislation this session that will allow the retirement system to make these adjustments based on an actuarially determined contribution. So these adjustments in the future will hopefully be more frequent, but far smaller, to make sure that the fund is fully sound. And the goal behind the two pieces of legislation combined is to have this fund fully funded at 100% within 30 years or less. And that's based on the current actuarial estimations. That should be what takes place. Why do we want to get to 100%? We've discussed many times this session. At 100% funding, then folks can start to receive a COLA, cost of living adjustment. And so that's the goal. So this is just one of those pieces to get us closer to that step. And again, it works in conjunction with other legislation. So again, ask for your aye vote on the the Joint Conference Committee report number 1. Thank you.
We are voting on Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 67. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? I'm sorry. Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman, excused. Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 44 aye, 17 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 67. The rumor is that down the hall, they passed the budget, so. Yeah, maybe we don't come back in May. All right, Representative Stiff, are you around? Are you ready? All right, the next Joint Conference Committee for our consideration, report for our consideration is Joint Conference number 1 on House Bill 92, Chairman Stiff.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
I move the adoption of Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 on House Bill 92 and ask for your favorable consideration. Folks, the compromise that we came to on this was that House Bill 92, it's parental rights. The Senate and the other body in an amendment had added the word unemancipated in front of the word child. I thought that was a good amendment. We're agreeing to that. The other body wanted us to remove the reference to courts, and so we conceded to that. But the sticking point for us was the other body had wanted to create the private right of action so that parents could sue school districts and teachers for money in court, and we objected to that, and the Senate, the other body, receded to the House position. So as it stands, the bill reads just as it left this body, with the difference that they had the word unemancipated, and we've deleted the section dealing with the courts. So I urge an aye vote.
Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a little more about the removal of courts. That was a substantial part of the purpose of the bill, as I recall. Just curious why the agreement to go without that.
Anybody else for their first time? Not? Oh. Representative Oakley, are you just, okay, you're just walking around, all right. Chairman Stith.
Mr. Speaker, I too share the concern of the chairman of Judiciary. That was a part of the bill that was near and dear to my heart, but not having that, nonetheless, what the core part of the bill does make explicit that the existing parental rights statute will apply to our schools, to our K through 12 schools. And I think that part is clear, and given that it should, in the event that it were to come before a court of competent jurisdiction, we would hope the plain language as it reads now would mean that the court would honor the intent of the legislature that the parental rights statute apply to K through 12 schools.
Okay. We are voting on Joint Conference Committee number 1 on House Bill 92. A majority of elected members is required to adopt the report. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Aye. Allred? Aye. Andrew? Aye. Angelos? No. Banks? Aye. Bear? Aye. Berger? Aye. Brown? Aye. Burkhart? Aye. Byron? Aye. Chadwick? Aye. Chestick? No. Klauston? Aye.
Excused.
Oh, we're good. Conrad? Aye. Crago? Aye. Davis? Aye. Eklund? Aye. Haroldson? Aye. Harshman? Excused. Heiner? No. Henderson? Aye. Hornock? Aye. Jennings? No. Knapp? No. Larson Lloyd? Aye. Larson JT? Aye. Lawley? Aye. Locke? No. Nyman? Aye. Newsom? Aye. Nicholas? Aye. Nemec? Aye. Northrup? No. Oakley? Aye. Obermuller? O'Hearn? Aye. Olson? Aye. Ottman? Pendergraft? No. Penn? No. Provenza? No. Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? No. Singh? Aye. Slagle? No. Smith? No. Stiff? Aye. Storer? No. Strock? Aye. Stivar? No. Tarver? No. Trujillo? No. Walters? Aye. Ward? No. Washut? Aye. Western? Aye. Winter? No. Wiley? Aye. Yin? No. Zwolenzer Dan?
No.
Zwolenzer Dave? Aye. Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Klauston, aye to no. Oh. Klauston, aye. Further changes? Angelos? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 41 aye, 20 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference number 1 on House Bill 92. I think we'll stand at ease for just a second until I get more paperwork wrangled.
Sure. Now's good. Now's good. Sure. Mr. Speaker, can I have the privilege?
Representative Ottman, do you have a privilege?
Privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
As is another tradition within this body is to give a plaque to the Speaker of the House. So here it is. It's a surprise.
It's kind of like Christmas, huh? All right. That's very nice. Thank you. Really nice plaque. We will just kind of hang around until we get more paperwork. All right, we're at that, we have people on the floor that shouldn't be on the floor. Let's everybody find their seat. Let's come to order. Thank you. So we are at that order of business of overrides of governor vetoes. And so Representative Stiff,
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 4, Sections 8 and 9 of the Wyoming Constitution, I move that the House of Representatives override the governor's veto of a portion of Senate Enrolled Act Number 28, being original Senate File Number 2, and specifically in this first motion to override the governor's veto of a reference on page 1 limited to vetoed one word, the word energy, in Section 1.
so let me ask, Chief, does the members have that available on the internet? And if not, okay, all right. I don't know where it's at, but have you guys found it? Under amendments, all right. So Representative Stiff, I'm going to ask you to redo that and on which section. So we're on in House Enrolled Act number 28 being original House Bill 2, original Senate Enrolled Act number 28 being original Senate File number 2. And now you'll explain that section again.
Mr. Speaker, yes, this particular motion is limited to the governor's veto of just one word on page 1. It shows under annual dues, it says, the original bill said the Energy Council, $76,800. And the chief executive has just deleted the word energy, which frankly makes it nonsensical because we don't belong to the council, we're a member of the Energy Council. So for that reason, the governor just wanted, I think, us to all vote that we support the word energy.
All
In
right.
fact, in his message, the governor practically is inviting us to take this vote to override the veto.
So that motion is in order, and we will consider and vote separately on each item or part of the governor's veto identified in the list distributed to the members. The motion is to override governor's veto of Senate Enrolled Act number 28 being original Senate File 2, the section that was read by the good Speaker Pro Tem. So if you vote aye, you vote to override the governor's veto. The override requires a 2/3 majority of the members elected. And the chief clerk, when she gets her machine loaded, will call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman, excused. Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd?
Excused.
Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemick? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood?
Excused.
Singh? Slagle? Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to override Part 1 or Message 1 of Senate File 2 and World Act 28. Chief Clerk, so we have overridden that. So Chief Clerk, keep that up a little longer, and then I can actually read that message when it's before you click it off. So Representative Stith, when you make your next motion, I think according to the, on the computer, it's like Part 2, right? Senate File 2. Chairman Zwanitzer can kind of show you that and get you through it. So, all right, Speaker Pro Tem Stith on the second message.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 4, Sections 8 and 9 of the Wyoming Constitution, I move that the House of Representatives override the governor's veto of a portion of Senate Enrolled Act Number 28, being original Senate File Number 2, and this is specifically motion number 2, and this is to override the governor's veto of a reference on page 3, limited to vetoed paragraph A, Romanet I, in section 4, carry forward of prior appropriations, and all vetoed language on page 3 that constitutes paragraph A, Romanet I. In addition, just to clarify, on page 3, the motion also includes to delete the letter S so that instead of purposes, it reads purpose.
Majority Floor Leader Nyman, do you have any explanation on what this motion is about? Or maybe the bringer would want to tell what this actually does.
Mr. Speaker, so the point of this is a carryover of prior appropriations, and the purpose of this is so that the legislature can carry out its legislatively mandated purpose to do a recalibration of the funding model for K through 12 education. And these funds are necessary to be carried over. It's about $1.2 million. And if this language is vetoed, then there's not funding enough to get the consultants working on the recalibration model. And it's especially important since we have pending litigation where this issue of our recalibration is at issue. So for that reason, I would encourage an aye vote on motion number 2.
Chairman Northrup.
I would encourage your support on this amendment or on this veto override. We really need that extra little bit of money to be able to get over the hump. As you know, those contracts will soon be let out, and without that available funding, we could be in a pickle as far as trying to get the court-ordered recalibration that's done every 5 years. So vote aye.
The motion is to override the governor's veto of message number 2 on Senate File 2, veto message number 2 on Senate File 2. Takes a 2/3 majority. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clauston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haraldson, Harshman, excused, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup, Oakley, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Sherwood, excused, Singh, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 61 aye, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to override the governor's veto of veto message number 2 on Senate File 2. Representative Stith.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 4, Sections 8 and 9 of the Wyoming Constitution, I move that the House of Representatives override the governor's veto of a portion of Senate Enrolled Act number 28, being original Senate File number 2, and specifically this motion number 3 would override veto message number 3 with respect to, again, on page 3 of the original bill, it relates to the paragraph A, Romanet II. And also I think we've already gotten rid of the S, so I think we're good on that one. So that's the motion. The purpose of the motion is these are also carry forward funds. Apparently the chief executive vetoed this because he doesn't like monies to be carried forward. But what these monies actually are, it's about $23,000 that represents money that you have paid, if you so chose, to buy your old computer, your old laptop, or Surface from the state, and this money then is used by the LSO to buy new machines for our 4-year replacement schedule. So it's $23,000. Please vote aye.
The motion is to override the governor's veto of motion veto message number 3 on Senate File 2. If you vote aye, you are voting to override the governor's veto. The override requires a 2/3 majority of members elected. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Ellerman, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clauston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, excused, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrop, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 1 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to override the governor's veto of veto message number 3 on Senate File 2. Representative Stith.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 4, Sections 8 and 9 of the Wyoming Constitution, I move that the House of Representatives override the governor's veto of Senate Enrolled Act 28, being original Senate File 2, with respect to, so this will be motion number 4 relating to veto message number 4, and it's a very technical motion. All of this does is deletes just the reference to a Romanet 3 on page 3. So, and the purpose of this is, since we just got rid of Romanets A1 and A2, you don't need a subsection. It'll just read for the following purpose, and it will go to any unexpended on page 3. So highly technical. The only thing at stake in this motion is whether we have a Romanet 3 appearing in this paragraph or not. Please vote aye.
The motion is to override the governor's veto of message number 4 on, veto message number 4 on Senate File 2. If you vote aye, you are voting to override the governor's veto. The override requires a 2/3 majority of the members elected. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman, excused. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanzer Dan. Zwanzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 3 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to override the governor's veto of veto message number 4 of Senate File 2. Representative Stith, are we all done there, or we may or may not? Done there, good. Chairman, are we all done?
Mr. Speaker, I have no more motions.
Thank you. Chairman Northrup, would you come over here? Come up here. Chairman Northrup. Okay. Come on up to the front. All right, Chairman Northrup.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 4, Section 8 and 9 of the Wyoming Constitution, I move that the House of Representatives override the governor's veto of Senate Enrolled Act Number 22, being original Senate File 61, Educational Charter School Amendments. And so let me explain to you what happened is that, remember way back when, last year when we worked up charter school amendments, when we worked on charter schools, we had a charter authorizing board. And that board was supposed to take care of everything that the charter schools did. And then we had this bill come through, and the superintendent said, oh yes, by the way, we need to fix this problem. And so we have a Bill 61 that came in and fixed 2 problems. One is LEAs, education, I forgot what the LEAs. Local education is, yes, authority. So we had that portion of it, and then the second portion of it also is to give charter schools 10 equal payments. So that's what this bill does. Please vote aye to override, and that way the charter schools will get their 10 equal payments, and they'll also be able to become their own LEAs to be able to get federal funds so that they can function. Thank you.
All right, the motion is to override the governor's veto of Senate Enrolled Act number 22, being original Senate File 61. If you vote aye, you're voting to override the governor's veto. The override requires a 2/3 majority of the members elected. Chief, discussion.
Point of order,
There,
yeah.
very good.
Thank
We'll
you.
do discussion. Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in support of the override, one of the main points of the letter from the governor is that we might have too many LEAs, maybe up to 50. I think that's not a concern. This is how other states do LEAs, local education agencies, for charter schools. The state to our south has 250 charter schools. Every single one of them is an LEA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is needed to just clean up the process and simplify it and not put the burden on the Charter School Authorizing Board, and to just allow those schools to have direct access to those funds we require them to use.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually going to rise in opposition to overriding this veto, which is a pretty rare occurrence. But I think it's prudent that we read the veto message for what it's worth and take the information very seriously. And ladies and gentlemen, let me kind of explain to you, I supported this bill. I voted aye for this bill all the way through, but I think the concerns that the chief executive downstairs laid out on this are very, very worthy of our consideration. And I think the biggest problem that I have with this particular bill as it's been vetoed now is the concern of this ad hoc piecemealing together of issues when it comes to these charter schools. I think the most poignant position in the governor's letter on this is when he states, we're in a position right now that we haven't even given the existing charter authorization board the opportunity to do its job to begin with, and we're already starting to remove pieces of their authority away from them and give it to the charter schools themselves. There are some concerns. I'm not going to disagree with that these charter schools are going through this process. But I'm going to be the first one to sit here and tell you, again, I voted for all these charter schools as well. That's part of the process of standing up and doing too many things too quickly, ladies and gentlemen. We rammed charter schools through both sides of this Capitol building, and we're trying to ram this through without any idea of what these consequences can possibly be. And I sat down and I read the governor's letter, and I supported this piece of legislation all the way through, and I've supported every other charter school. This has potential serious, long-lasting impacts. And this is not one of those pieces of legislation that we should be looking at and going, oh, well, because it says charter school, it's red meat, and we need to make sure that we just vote for this to get it through. I really appreciate the governor's veto message on this, the chief executive's veto message on this, and it's really given me a pause for thought on this, Mr. Speaker. I am on and against overriding this veto.
Representative Yin.
So, Mr. Speaker, I've never served in the Education Committee, so I really don't know. What are the powers of a local education agency? So that term clearly is very specific. I think from my understanding, at least for the federal grants, it's just so they can apply for federal and state grants. But are there other powers of a local education agency that we're granting these charter schools? And that's what it sounds like the concern is from the governor, but I don't know what they do. So any clarity within that realm would be very helpful for me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody? Representative Olson, Chairman Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in favor of the override. I think a couple of things. One, I have all the respect in the world for our chief executive, so please take please take that message clear that when I'm asking for the override, it has nothing to do with any reflection that I might have on the executive, but I do think he got it wrong here. The board, the state board is not set up, it's not designed to be an LEA. It was originally, that was the intent and thought, but the board's not able to function that way. The board is not fully, it's not going to be staffed to a level where they can oversee grant monies, or the federal monies rather, coming in and out. This bill is very critical to make charter schools their own LEA for the purposes of receiving federal monies. They'll act just like a district does. Money from the federal government funnels directly to a district, and the district distributes it amongst its schools. The charter school will have to act in the same accordance and is better equipped to be audited and work through the process that with compliance with those federal funds. So this is a very critical bill. It comes because, I'm going to push back on this idea that because we're bringing bills to try to fix the system, that's somehow a bad thing. It's not. It means that from the moment that we decided to open up the net and allow more charter schools to come into the state of Wyoming, we also put our thumb on it, and we said we're going to watch it and we're going to follow it and we're going to make sure we get it right. And that's all we're doing here. This bill was designed to make sure we get it right. And I highly doubt it's the last bill you're going to see on charter schools, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It just means that we continue to work the process, we continue to work on the issue to make sure that it's working the way that it should, and that we're being good stewards of the public's money, and that the charter schools are functioning as they should. So I'm going to ask you to override the governor's veto on this and let the process work itself out so that these schools can function properly.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time between Representative Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A local education agency could have a number of functions, but it's usually a school, a charter school, and it has something to do with education. So it could have a few functions, but the function of what we're talking about is to receive grants and funds to provide for special education services that these local charter schools are required to provide for. So this simplifies the process, it allows them to do it, and it puts it in the hands of the right people to have the control, rather than a board tasked with authorizing charter schools, of which there are no more to authorize.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, on and against, and ladies and gentlemen, I would highly encourage you in the 45 seconds you have now to skim through that letter. I don't disagree. I do not disagree with the fact that we have some concerns with the way charter schools are being authorized, or I'm sorry, the way that they're being handled with the LEA status. Granting this broad brushstroke on an override, as is stated in this veto message, has potential pitfalls in the future. I think the best way to handle this is exactly what the chief executive downstairs says with the second to last paragraph in his letter to us. We need to do a comprehensive look at charter schools. We have had charter school bills thrown in our face year after year for 3 years straight, and all of them have been that red meat. We got to do this because it's what our constituents want. So we do it, and then we keep coming back. We got to find this, and now we got to do this, and now we got to do this. Incrementalism is not a bad thing. I don't disagree with that statement, but doing incrementalism for the fact of incrementalism to try to ad hoc these solutions doesn't fix the potential inequalities that putting this bill into law actually might create. So on and against.
Anybody else for their second time before the bringer of the motion? Chairman Northrup, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to go back and go over this whole thing. And as you heard, we just put this thing together last year. We haven't had 1 year underneath our belt yet, and we're already finding these hiccups. One of the parts that's important to this is getting the 10 equal payments out. That's in the second half of the bill. It seems to be overlooked over the LEA issue, but we got to get this charter schools at 10 equal portions. However, we have an airplane that took off. It took off on one wheel. It's got baling wire holding both wings on, and quite frankly, we're repairing it on the way as it's flying along. So it's your decision how you vote. Take that into consideration. Also know that small districts don't have the personnel to do it. Oh, what are small districts? Charter schools. Thank you.
The motion is to override the governor's veto of veto message number 1 on Senate File 61. If you vote aye, or you are voting to override the governor's veto, the override requires a 2/3 majority of the members elected. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Brown?
Excused.
Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Excused. Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
No.
Brown? Henderson? Aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 41 aye, 20 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have failed to override the governor's veto of veto message number 1 on Senate File 61. Chief, what's next? Just give me a quick rundown here and then I can tell the people. So we'll be at ease for a bit, so somebody's got a dog they got to let out, they better go do her. All right. So stand at ease till the sound of the gavel. It'll be 15, 20 minutes, I guess. If I can get enough people back in their seats, we'll run through one more of these, just because it's available. So let's pull as many people in. This will only take a few minutes, so hopefully, that we need to have enough people that we can vote. Are you sure? You never know. All right. The next, we are at that order of business of consideration of conference committee reports. The next conference committee report for our consideration is Conference Committee Number 1 on Senate File 42, Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Message Number 26, Report on Conference Committee 1 on Senate File 42. So, ladies and gentlemen, in committee of the, or no, I'm sorry, in standing committee amendment, we deleted out most of what the Senate had added in on that bill. The conference committee looked at it and decided, okay, we can come to a compromise. So we put back in part of the Senate's original wording, deleted about half of it, kind of got what we were really concerned with, which was really inappropriate direction to the committee that oversees our utilities and that, and also took care of some wording that in effect in the original would have been a takings and that. So deleted some, ended it. It requires a report be prepared by the power companies and that, and so that's what it does, and I would ask for your aye vote on concurrence or to approve the conference committee report.
Any comments, questions? All right.
Question.
We are voting on Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on Senate File 42. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clouston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, excused, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT,
Excused.
Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas,
Excused.
Nemec, Northrup,
Excused.
Oakley,
Excused.
Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer,
Excused.
Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo,
Excused.
Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley,
Excused.
Yin, Zwanzer Dan,
Excused.
Zwanzer Dave,
Excused.
Speaker Summers.
Aye.
Changes, Allemand, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Northrup, excuse to aye. Jennings, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Further changes. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 36 aye, 17 no, 9 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 42. We will recess to the sound of the gavel for, I don't know, it'll be a little while. Chief, we don't have anything else right now, do we? All right, it'll be a bit. All right, sound of the gavel back. I have one other thing. So I'm going to appoint a conference committee, JCC 1 on Senate File 13, Walters Chair, Nicholas Larson Lloyd. All right, now we're at ease till the sound of the gavel.
mind reading this message first?
The House will please come to order. So first thing we're going to do is read in a message.
Message 339. Mr. Speaker, Senate File 118, Bighorn and Domestic Sheep Relocation, Federal Action. The Senate adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on the report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated.
All right.
Ayes 30, noes 1. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
So the next joint conference committee for our consideration, conference committee report for our consideration, is Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on Senate File 118, Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move message number 339 in relation to the Senate File 118 and ask for an aye vote. I know if you're probably looking at it, it looks like it's a bunch of pages, but that didn't change whatsoever. The only one change that was made is on page 3, the very bottom in section 4. So you'll recall this bill, we came down here to our end, we put that amendment on there saying, that basically the effective date is July 1, 2026. We had our JCC and our partners at the end of the hall wanted that amendment removed entirely. Obviously, I had some concerns with that amendment, but it was the House position. We ultimately told them that that's just not an option. Removing it entirely was too much, was a bridge too far. So they said, well, what about 1 year? We responded, that's still too much. So obviously there has to be some sort of compromise. So right now it's at 24 months. We moved it down to 18 months. So if you look there on section 4 on page 3, the very bottom it says January 1, 2026. It used to read July 1, 2026. So it's about 18 months. So I think it's reasonable and fair. Their rationale, which did make sense, is one, obviously there's some momentum behind this issue and they didn't want to lose that entirely. And also there's some additional processes involved that take quite a bit, rangeland management assessments, setting up the disease monitoring programs, those kind of things. So if there are any questions, happy to answer them. If not, please vote aye.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what you are saying is that you ceded 6 months, you couldn't hold the House position? I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Ow. Anybody else for their first time? Representative Conrad.
To the previous speaker, I'm the face of that decision. That was the compromise that I made with the Senate group. So please be assured that they wanted that year. I denied that, and we compromised January 1st of 26. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Second time. I'm reluctant to give you the mic, Chairman Brown, but I will.
I just think we have some very bad negotiation down there.
I thought that. Representative Western, you want to take another run at this, or you good? Okay, we are voting on Joint Conference Committee Number 1 to Senate File 118. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. The Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clouston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, excused, Heiner, Henderson,
Excused.
Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Alamand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 49 aye, 11 no, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 to Senate File 118. All right, the next conference committee report for our consideration is Joint Conference number 1 on House Bill 166, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll keep the jokes to a minimum on this one. I would move Joint Conference Committee Report number 1 to House Bill 166 and ask for an aye vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your ESA bill. So if you're down in your computer and watching things there and you're interested in the ESAs and the lifeline on this bill, this is the time to pay attention. What you will find if you pull up the bill on your computer is a very lengthy 2-page amendment, but I will explain exactly what that amendment does. As this bill left this House, you had 5 different topics that we discussed yesterday that we wanted to go back and discuss. And the first one was a means test. Make this constitutional. If we would have let this go without a means test, I don't think it would have survived big red letters across the front of it, and we wouldn't have been able to override that. So what you see on the first page here is a new means test. This is also an extension of said means test. When this bill left our body, we had a ceiling of $5,000 per award. In an effort to strike some level of compromise, we have adjusted that to $6,000. That is your top level. That top level is now achieved at 150% of federal poverty level. From that point forward, you keep stair-stepping down, and we have more stair steps, which also authorizes more people to take advantage of more opportunities. So you'll see that we have $4,800 for people at 200% to 150% of the federal poverty line. You have $3,600 from people from 250 to 200%. You have $3,000 for people from 300 to 250%. You have $2,400 from those at 350 to 300%. You get $1,800 from those at the 400% to 350%. And again, an additional stair step to increase this load, again, to make it constitutional, you now have a floor, which is required. And that new floor is going to go all the way down to the 500% of federal poverty level. So it's a little bit out of the norm of what we typically do in our statutes. We usually cap off at 400%. Again, a little bit more of a compromise situation. So at that 450% to 500% of federal poverty level, those families would then qualify for $600 of an ESA. One of the areas that we seated on the House side on the topic is a little bit cleaner language on the studies of the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming. You'll see that on page 2, and that gets right there where it says page 10, line 3, and we also have that on page 16, line 13. The more important process on this is the next portion of this amendment, which is the striking 70 and 30 break. If you'll remember when this bill left this body, we had a break at 30% could be used for pre-K. That is now down to 20%. If that 20% is not utilized, that money can then tip over to the 80% and be utilized to fund more schooling on the ESA side for the 80%. So you'll see that language in the very next paragraph down. What you will find probably the most striking is you're trying to say, well, what happened to pre-K? If you turn all the way back to the very, very beginning of your conference committee report, at the very top, you see delete the following Senate amendments, and that's HBO 166 SS01. That's their standing committee amendment. That standing committee amendment is all we had to discuss to get rid of that. So we struck that language, putting pre-kindergarten back in there, expanding the opportunity. We did not give it to everyone because we feel that that's an unconstitutional position and we want this bill to survive. So we have expanded those opportunities and provided more money to those families that do qualify. And with that, Mr. Speaker, that is your Joint Conference Committee report on House Bill 166.
Anybody want to discuss it? Representative Obermuller.
Well, everybody knows how I feel about this bill, so just a short statement. We were told that 24 states already have these and they've all worked fine. So I was thinking about those 24 states and they all have something in common. They all have higher tax structures than Wyoming. Now, this bill is a growth in government. It just costs more. There's no offset in the public system for these dollars. This bill does not walk dollars out of the public school system and carry it over to your private school. Public school financing is based on classroom size, classroom space, teachers, maintenance, all the things that make up education. When a child leaves there, none of that changes. So this is simply growth in government. And I talked the other day about the harm this does to the church, so I'm not going to repeat that. And just say that this is a vote for the usurpation of the responsibility of churches and families that they've done in this state for 133 years. So I just want to take a note of the end of this period. Thank you.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was said that the 450% poverty level makes this bill constitutional. When we were talking about this during the interim, there was conversation about what the courts see as help, as aid for folks, and what they would deem as giving help to the poor. And that level that we talked about was that the courts said 400%. So I don't really necessarily agree that this makes this constitutional. I think the courts are going to say that 450% is not necessarily welfare. Then we're just handing out checks to people that can afford to send their children to private schools. And, you know, the other thing that those 24 states also have in common is that they all have lower test scores than students in Wyoming public schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else for your first time? Representative Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess my only question is how much of the population is under 500% of the federal poverty level? So what percent of Wyoming families qualify for at least $600?
Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to again, caution the body that because we are neither loaning money to anyone, giving them a credit, or providing a donation, that part of the Constitution that we're talking about does not apply to this. Also, a common theme of what happens in those other states with ESA programs, of which there are 13, not 24, is that the test scores in public schools, after a good amount of time of that program being implemented, start to improve.
Chairman Northrup.
So this bill started out at $4,500, and then it moved to $5,000, and now it's at $6,000. And I'd just like to ask the good chairman, can you tell me why he didn't ratchet it down just a little bit? More people have more opportunities if it's not so high. So just inform me of what's going on there. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Family of four at the 500% poverty level is $156,000. So I'm thinking those folks can afford a private school should they choose.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question, during the conference committee, there was talk about means testing. I'd like to know where that's at with this bill. And then there was also discussion of a sunset provision. Did that change at all?
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer of the motion? Chairman Brown.
Mr. Speaker, I'd say I did my job as a chairman because I have both sides irritated. That's a good thing in my opinion, because that's the definition of compromise, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, the definition is, we've had a couple of other people read definitions, that's an agreement made between two people on each side making concessions. That is exactly what you have here with this particular bill. I don't disagree, it ain't perfect. We got pre-kindergarten without a sunset date. We also got educational savings accounts. We have a higher tier. We have more money into this than ever before. My plea was to go back to conference committee, let us work on this, and that's exactly what I did. To the representative here from the capital city, a means test, again, starts on page 1. That's the entire, pretty much the entire amendment here, to be honest with you, is it starts at 150% of the poverty level. That starts the constitutional guarantee on this. To the representative from over the hill on saying whether or not this makes it constitutional. My only argument on that is we say everything's constitutional until the courts tell us otherwise. We have had latitude. The Supreme Court has given us that latitude, that the legislature has the authority and the obligation to determine what needy means. And in this particular situation, I would urge this body to really consider, do we want good enough to become the enemy of perfect yet again? Another question about the constitutionality is it would require somebody to be aggrieved, somebody to be harmed in this situation. It'd be pretty tough to make an argument in the court of law to say, I'm being harmed by receiving a scholarship from the state of Wyoming to attend private school. I think you'd have a tough battle ahead of you on that one. The $4,500 discussion, I seem to remember it actually, the original discussion started at $7,500 because that was the average of what it costs to send a student to a private school in this state. When this discussion started way back in the interim, that was the original threshold. It was ratcheted down to $4,500, then moved back up to $5,000, and now we're at $6,000. We've made concessions on both sides. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the epitome of compromise. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
We are voting on Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 166. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? No. Allred? No. Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman, excused. Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Repeat? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Locke? I lost you. Locke, no. To I. Allemand, I. To, I'm sorry, no to I. Further changes. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 34 aye, 27 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 on House Bill 166. Hey, Chief, we got any more?
Enrolled that.
Oh, yes. Our favorite thing, signing of enrolled acts. We are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. The first rolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 49, being original House Bill 125.
House Enrolled Act Number 49, being original House Bill 125, an act relating concealed weapons, repealing gun-free zones, providing for the carrying of concealed weapons as specified, creating a criminal offense for prohibiting entry to a person carrying a concealed weapon as specified, clarifying that only the state legislature may regulate firearms, weapons, and ammunition, providing for exceptions, amending the definition, requiring rulemaking, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 49, being original House Bill 125. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Harrelson. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 56, being original Senate File 19.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 56, being original Senate File 19, an act relating to developmental preschool funding, modifying the per-child amounts used to calculate payments to service providers, modifying requirements for the Department of Health's budget requests for developmental preschool services as specified, modifying the state utilized to account the number of children that participate in the program, providing an appropriation and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 56, being original Senate File 19. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 57, being original Senate File 86.
Senate Enrolled Act number 57, being original Senate File 86, an act relating to education, creating the firearms on school property account, providing for reimbursement to school districts for costs related to possession of firearms on school property, authorizing rulemaking, providing a continuous appropriation, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 57, being original Senate File 86. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 58, being original Senate File 77.
Senate Enrolled Act number 58, being original Senate File 77, an act relating to Homeland Security, requiring county clerks to report conveyances and property transactions to the Office of Homeland Security and the Division of Criminal Investigation as specified, requiring the designation of critical infrastructure zones, authorizing the Office of Homeland Security and the Division of Criminal Investigation to investigate land transactions that threaten critical infrastructure, requiring the Division of Criminal Investigation to investigate Homeland Security incidents, providing definitions, making conforming amendments, providing an appropriation, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 58, being original Senate File 77. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 59, being original Senate File 100.
Senate Enrolled Act number 59, being original Senate File 100, an act relating to the insurance code, providing regulations for payment of claims from insurers or the insurer's intermediary to pharmacies, providing definitions, requiring rulemaking, providing applicability, and providing for an effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 59, being original Senate File 100. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 60, being original Senate File 69.
Senate Enrolled Act number 60, being original Senate File 69, an act relating to welfare, increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate for hospice care as specified, providing an appropriation and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 60, being original Senate File 69. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 61 on Senate File 89.
Senate Enrolled Act number 61, being original Senate File 89, an act relating to taxation and revenue, increasing the amount of exemption for veterans for ad valorem taxation, requiring rulemaking, specifying applicability, providing an appropriation, providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 61, being original Senate File 89. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 62, being original Senate File 44.
Senate Enrolled Act number 62, being original Senate File 44, an act relating to environmental quality, amending requirements for the commencement of limited mining operations, amending bonding, notice, and reporting requirements for limited mining operations, limiting overburdened surface mining operations as specified, amending requirements for extending limited mining operations, requiring approval of limited mining operations on state or school lands by the county and the State Board of Land Commissioners as specified, authorizing rulemaking, amending bond release provisions for limited mining operations, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 62, being original Senate File 44. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 63, being original Senate File 83.
Senate Enrolled Act number 63, being original Senate File 83, an act relating to the revision of statutes and other legislative enactments, correcting statutory references and language resulting from inadvertent errors and omissions in previously adopted legislation, amending obsolete references, repealing and obsolete provisions, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 63, being original Senate File 83. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 64, being original Senate File 90.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 64, being original Senate File 90, an act relating to public funds, authorizing the establishment of a local government investment equities pool, authorizing the investment of local government funds in equities, specifying duties for the state treasurer and the state treasurer's office, making conforming amendments and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 64, being original Senate File 90. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 65, being original Senate File 41. Did I hand out two at one time or something? We got an, all right, so the next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 65, being original Senate File 41.
Senate Enrolled Act 65, being original Senate File 41, an act relating to banks, banking, and finance, generally exempting employees of the Division of Banking from state personnel classification and compensation provisions, requiring the state banking commissioner, with the approval of the governor, to establish personnel classifications and salaries for positions within the Division of Banking as specified, requiring reports, providing an appropriation, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 65, being original Senate File 41. I have so signed. All right, messages from the Senate.
Message 341. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 92, Protection of Parental Rights. The Senate adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report on the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, noes 1. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
All right, the next joint conference committee for our consideration is Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 4, Chairman Oakley. Chairman Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to move Joint Conference Committee report to House Bill 4 and ask for your aye vote.
Did you say move?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
So, in our conference committee, there were two, this is House Bill 4, which is the property tax refund program. And so there were two differences between us and the other body. And so knock me over with a feather. The Senate added an appropriation to the bill. So they said they respected that the Department of Revenue would incur some administrative costs administering the program. And so they added a total of $70,000 for those. And it is true, of course, that they will incur those costs. So we adopted that position. And the other one was we had added the ability to audit or review these so that if there is any fraud or anything going on, it gives us an opportunity to review that, which we think is an important piece. So we told them that, they agreed with that, and they adopted our position. So I think it came out a good little bill. So I just would ask for your aye vote.
We are voting on Joint Conference Committee Number 1 on House Bill 4. A majority of the elected members is required to adopt the report. The Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemande. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman, excused. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 61 aye, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to House Bill 4. Let's see, what else we got, Chief? Yeah, we still got stuff out there, but yeah. We have 54 out there.
All right, just, yeah, standard.
And the water bill. Okay. All right, I think we'll stand at ease at the sound of the gavel. I know we're waiting for, I think, the water bill and Senate File 54. I haven't seen that yet, so. All right. You know, I think we could be 15, 20 minutes, so what time is it? Almost 5, so 5:15, make sure you're back, but if you need to go do something, go do that in that amount of time. All right, I've just heard that the Senate is out until 5:40. We can't do anything until we get stuff from them, and they're not working, so. So 5:40, I'll make it 5:40.